Welcome to the show. Crank up the volume and meet Alicia Berruti, a business professional and motivational speaker with Bomb Bomb. Our conversation takes a fast turn into identity and acceptance, so buckle up and be sure to hit that subscribe button for more future episodes. Let's juice it up. Welcome to the show. My name's Juice Ortiz. I'm here with the lovely
Alicia Berruti.
Alicia Berruti. Alicia comes from us from, you live here in Colorado Springs.
I do.
Yeah. I met her through Greg Lubchek, which you guys have just a small friendship.
No, that's my man.
That's your man.
That's my man.
Yep. And, I do have to thank you because I've been trying to build realtor friendships, and I was talking to your man, and I said something about speed skating, and I'm doing podcasts, and I said something about Brzezinski, and I think that's around the time you walked up.
Yes.
And you were like, how do you know Brzezinski?
Correct. Well, because, not very many people have ever heard of Dr. Brzezinski. It's not a very common thing that you hear people talking about.
I found him somehow, like at YouTube. How often do you go on YouTube or social media stuff?
I mean, some social media, a fair amount. YouTube, not very often.
What's like your worst poison?
Twitter is my poison.
Really?
It is.
I had to cut my account off a couple times.
Oh, Juice. I don't think you realize how many times I have deleted Twitter off my phone.
Same account reinstalled?
Yes. I delete it off my phone because I'm like, oh man, this has too much of a hold on me. And then I end up going back. Yeah.
So I clicked through YouTube and I saw like Dr. Cures Cancer. I'm like, okay, what is this clickbait? And I'm a sucker for clickbait. And that's when I was like, oh, this guy's legitimate. And Amy reached out to their office and we had a great interview with them. But Twitter, how do you avoid the poison? Like, it seems like a ranting place.
Oh, sure. But I feel like that is all over social media, right? I mean, Facebook, I feel like Facebook is more poisonous, perhaps.
Okay.
I mean, a lot of it just depends on who your audience is, right? Like, what feed you're watching. And so on Twitter, I follow a lot of news organizations, all sides.
Is there a few that you prefer to go to? Or
no, they're just in the feed.
Okay,
they're just in the feed. So I use it to keep a good pulse of what's happening. So there's definitely news organizations, political activists, civil rights activists.
Okay.
Some celebrities, but it's mostly like political, civil rights activists and news organizations that I follow on Twitter.
Okay. And do you get into the comments or do you just kind of stay at post level?
I'm not a poster on Twitter. I'm just a lurker. Okay. I post a lot more on Instagram. I love Instagram, but it doesn't suck me in the same way that Twitter sucks me in. Sometimes the comments I do get sucked in. That's the fun of it.
On Instagram or
no,
Twitter?
On Twitter. On Twitter.
Okay.
Right. I enjoy the crazy.
Oh man, I have to keep my mouth shut on Twitter because I get very Are you opinionated person?
Oh, I'm extremely opinionated, but not on social media.
Okay. I'm
just a lurker.
Ah, gotcha. That's right. You said that.
I used to be a little bit more opinionated on my Instagram and Facebook. It's hard because so much of my connections on social media are through work, and I'm a front-facing representative for the company. I had a conversation with a boss one time. He wasn't my direct boss, but he was in leadership at the company, and he was like, no one's telling you can't say those things, you can't post those things, like no one is telling you that you can't. However, if you want to stay in a public facing role in this company, like it's just something to think about.
I'm curious how you handle that because I'm trying to go as far as I can speed skating. And so people enjoy seeing the journey, but I have my own personal opinions on craziness that's going around. And sometimes I can't keep my mouth shut. Sometimes I can. Yeah. How do you walk that line?
I don't know that I ever do it perfectly. I feel like I just, I'm very passionate about marginalized people, anyone, right? I'm very, very passionate about that. And so, I think it's hard to walk the balance of like, oh, I'm going to keep my mouth shut for the purpose of more recognition, more fame, more people aligning with me. Because that's not how I roll. Like, I really don't roll that way. I very much feel like our authenticity is the greatest gift that we can give the world around us. And so I'm never, ever going to be pretend to do something I'm not for the benefit of attention or likes or exposure or anything. I think I just decided that I'm going to stop yelling into the echo chamber.
Okay. I could see that.
You know?
Yeah.
Right? Like I'm not like gating my opinions for public discourse. I've just stopped talking about it publicly and sharing those conversations for spaces where I feel like I can actually have conversations instead of screaming into the void. And
that's really wise.
Thank you.
You know? Well, it's so retortive to, in fact, my fiance and I were meeting with our marriage coaches. We're getting married in a month.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And one of the things that came up this week, well, the focus this week was communication. And so as an adult, you hear, you process, and then you respond, whereas children, they hear and react. And I'm sure it's dawned on me before, but you're really highlighting in my brain how social media is so, really, actually, it's childish in that standpoint.
Sure. Everyone listen to me.
Yes. Yes.
But what about me? Listen to me.
Right,
what about
right,
me?
Right.
Yeah.
Did you struggle with that at the beginning of being a public figure or going into that? I have a question I still want to ask you from the beginning, but we haven't got there. Now we're kind of jumping forward. All right. So to get kind of into your job, what do you do?
So I'm the national speaker for a tech company called BombBomb. We do video as a communication tool as opposed to video for marketing. A lot of people, when they think about video for their business, they're thinking about YouTube, social media, marketing, website videos, all of that. What we do is for business professionals, sales professionals, coaches, teachers, anyone really. We make it easy for you to communicate with video in the places where you're doing your normal business communication over email and text.
I've gotten some bombs from either an account rep or a realtor, and it comes in my text. Yeah. And I click on it, and it's like, oh, this is kind of cool, like a little 60-second blast.
A human being speaking to you.
Yeah. And so is that the prime? Is it text or email is like the prime method for bombs?
Text or email. Okay. You can do it LinkedIn messaging, Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, any like web-based way that you're communicating.
Because you click the link and it takes you to that video.
Yeah. Okay. So like when people send me LinkedIn requests, I will often reply with a video. Being like, hey, Juice, thank you so much for reaching out. I'm so glad to connect with you here. The best part of my job is that I get to be a resource. So if I can ever be a resource in any ways, reply to this. And so like I can do that really easily on LinkedIn, just write in the messenger and just do it that way. Or like you said, a text message or an email. I mean, it's really like the heart of what we do is that humans are better face to face, right?
Big time.
All of the things that make us good communicators, eye contact, body language, tonality, facial expression, right? Tone, emotion.
You're getting me thinking of like my facial expressions
right now. so that's all part of what makes us not only a good communicator, but it's how people are able to understand communication, right? Like if you've ever sent a text message or an email to someone that they misunderstood because tonality was lacking.
Right. Yeah.
Right. You understand that you can't even understand what someone is communicating a lot of times when that stuff is stripped out. So if we're better face to face, then why not communicate face to face in the places where you're stuck sending plain text emails? And it's an asynchronous way. Like synchronous is your like your Zooms, right? Where you have to be on at the same time.
Okay. Oh, gotcha.
Right?
Okay. Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Like a video meeting, that's synchronous video communication. Whereas this is, I record you a video.
Oh, okay.
And I send it to you so that you get to watch it when you're ready.
We're synchronous right now.
We're synchronous right now.
Gotcha. But when we were trying to put this together, we were asynchronous.
That's asynchronous. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. That's cool.
Yeah. So I've been with them for a little over 8 years now. I started entry level, like customer support, answering phones.
Oh.
Yeah.
So you did not get in this position from the get. They did not hunt you for.
No, they did not hunt
speaker.
me as a speaker. I I grew and crafted this role.
So how'd you move from phone calls to what was the next step after that?
Yeah. So I have to give you like the briefest background
fine,
for
sure.
it. Okay. So, I mean, you're going to be into this. It'll open up more, but so I have been a massage therapist for 13
okay.
years.
I love my massage therapist. The fact it's a school, they're like the best part of training ever.
Yes. So, you know, I'm a mom. I have 3 kids and I went through a divorce. And I had been mostly a stay-at-home mom when they were little and went through a divorce and, you know, had to start making an income and went back to doing massage. And massage is not an ideal career track to support a family.
Okay.
Right? It's you have to think of it a lot like hair or nails or any of those kind of service industries where you only get paid when your hands are on someone.
Gotcha.
There's no base.
Yep.
There's no hourly rate. You're just working commission. There's only so many hours in the day that you can have your hands on a body. There's no like hustling after the kids are in bed, like working late. It's right. And so I wasn't making enough to support myself and my body was starting to break down. The amount that I had to work in order to put food on the table, my hands hurt all the time. And so I started looking for something else. But my life up to that point, my previous marriage, had me all pretty well convinced that I was stupid. Like I really did believe that I just, you know, like what else would someone pay me to do? I really thought that like the best chances that I had was that I was going to be like answering phones for a dentist's office or something. I didn't have any college, right? I thought I was stupid. I'd only done massage. And so a friend actually told me about Bomb Bomb and I ended up applying and I got hired in client success. And at this point, I mean, the entry-level base salary that they offered me, even at that moment, I was like, I can't believe someone's going to pay me this much money. And, but I was a single mom hustling. Like I had like 3 side jobs at the time because I was living at the poverty level for a family of 4. I was hustling. Yeah. And so, about like 2 months into my job on customer support, client success, they were running a sales competition and they were going to pay us commission.
For the competition?
Yeah, for the company.
Oh, okay. I'm tracking now.
Yeah, for the company, right? Yeah. So like those of us in support, they said that if we saved any accounts or upgraded any accounts, like if someone called in to cancel and we saved the account, or if someone called in for help and we upgraded them to another product, they were going to pay us commission.
Okay.
10% commission, the same thing as salespeople make. So I was like, okay. Right? Like I didn't know that I could sell or anything like that. I just was hustling. It's like, wait, you're going to pay me more money to sit here and do my job?
Right.
And so very quickly they were like, oh, this girl can sell. So I got promoted over to inside sales and I did inside sales for about 1.5 years.
What's inside sales?
So that's on the phones, inbound leads or outbound prospecting.
Contacting you?
Yeah. So inside sales means that you don't leave, right? You have outside sales where people usually, going and visiting clients or whatever, that type of thing. Yeah. But it was at that point in time that they started, the president of our company kind of had this hunch that I would be good in trade show booths at trade shows, doing product in booth demos.
Yes.
I've been a professional actor since I was 12 years old.
Oh, wow.
So it was sort of like he just had this hunch that, like Alicia would be good at this. And so they took me to a trade show and I was scared and nervous, but I was good at it. And so I started doing more and more like trade show booths and doing some speaking for Bomb Bomb. And I ended up getting promoted to enterprise sales. So now bigger accounts, large scale. And I was still doing trade shows and speaking and getting on stage for representing Bomb Bomb, but I was still had a pipeline that I was responsible for, had a commission number I was responsible for. And so it was getting a little messy in that like they're sending me to go speak in someone else's territory because I'm representing Bomb Bomb, but I'm not getting commission on that. Another salesperson is because that's not my, it was just getting. Were
you getting compensation for speaking?
I mean, no, not outside of my normal role, but I was so thrilled.
It was enjoyable.
Enjoyable. And so I did inside sales for 1.5 years. I did enterprise sales for about 1.5 years. And then the president of our company had called me in his office. And he kind of leaned back and he's like, Alicia, what's your dream job here? And I told him, right? I said, I don't want to have a commission number anymore.
Okay. Yep.
I want to keep representing the company. I want to keep speaking. I want to keep taking care of our clients. I want to keep educating and all of that. And he was like, great, that's what I need you to do. Let's go ahead and write that job description. So I kind of got to write my own job description.
And you're not in commission anymore?
No, I'm not in commission. I'm compensated base salary for
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So now you can, I see that as you are free to just be you.
Yes.
And they get the advantage of having you just be the brand.
Yes.
Almost.
Yeah. A lot of that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Very cool. So that kind of, some of what you said, the acting brought up a thought, but it's going to take me back to my big question. Have you ever heard of a town called Chilliwack?
Yeah, I used to go to the water park in Chilliwack and grew up camping in Chilliwack.
Okay.
In fact, my sister, when she was in high school, worked at the Chilliwack water park.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
When was that?
That would have been 97,
Okay.
maybe.
That's around the time I experienced my first encounter with stinging nettle.
Oh,
You know what stinging nettle is?
I do know what stinging nettle is.
How did you find out about stinging nettle?
I mean, I grew up in the Pacific Northwest on hiking trails and camping. I'm sure I discovered it at a very young age on the side of my leg.
That stuff, like, you just look at it and it stings you.
Barely brush it, yeah.
And it, like, pimples up. I
yeah.
have some second cousins in the 90s. My mom took us, my sister and brother and I, up on a trip to BC because my great-grandmother lived up there. And my second cousins and great uncles, they had a house and their backyard was a forest. Growing up in Southern California, I'd never seen a forest before.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
And I was like, whoa, this is like you walk out the back door and you're in a forest like with bears and you can get lost.
Yeah.
And he took us walking through and there was some stuff and I brushed it. It felt like a bee stung me. And so I was curious if you'd heard of that town. That's cool. Because you weren't born in the United States.
Correct. I'm from British Columbia. I grew up on the east coast I was born on the east coast of Canada.
Oh, really? Oh,
but
really?
I grew up outside of Vancouver in British Columbia.
Like Nova Scotia born?
Well, born St. John, New Brunswick. Graduated high school in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Spent most of my growing up on the west coast in Vancouver, BC.
Oh, okay. You graduated high school in New Brunswick.
No, I was born in
You
New
were
Brunswick.
born in New Brunswick.
Graduated high school in Halifax, Nova Scotia.
So you were in New Brunswick, then were in BC for a period of time.
Yeah.
Large period of time.
Yep.
And then back to Nova Scotia. And so what was the catalyst that got you to the West Coast and then back to the other coast?
Yeah. My dad was a police officer.
Okay.
He worked
like a Canadian Mountie?
Be careful. because
I don't know the difference.
Well, because so the Mounties are CMP. They're very specifically the Royal Canadian Mounted Police.
Oh, okay.
Those are the Mounties, RCMP. So they're a police force
they're nationwide.
Nationwide.
So they'd be like the Marshals or maybe not FBI.
No, they're still a police force. Okay. It's just, I mean, the Canadian government is a little bit different than the U.S. government. And
Does
so,
it count like a National Guard?
No,
okay,
it's just
totally
a police force.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but my dad worked for another police force that was actually a federal police force.
Oh.
That was called the Ports Canada Police.
Okay.
And so the Ports Canada Police were technically a Crown corporation.
Crown meaning like connected to the Queen of England?
Crown, yes, because Canada is a Commonwealth country. Mm-hmm. So Ports Canada Police was responsible for all of the ports. And so my dad had gotten transferred out to Vancouver when I was like 3, which is how we ended up out there. And then he was there for, most of my childhood. And then the Ports Canada Police was actually disbanded as an entire police force. This was in 96, I believe. And so my dad, because he'd been a federal government employee for like 17 or 18 years, he got another federal government job with Customs and Immigration.
Okay.
Investigations, Customs and Immigration. Mm-hmm. want me to specify that. My dad would definitely want you to know that
We're going on record here, by the way.
We are going on record that my dad never sat in an airport stamping passports. He did investigations.
Real police work,
Real
right?
police work. Oh yeah, he's got great stories. But so the job that they got him was in Halifax, and so
and that's what brought you back.
that's
to
what
Nova
brought us
Scotia.
back. So
Okay.
it was the summer between my freshman and my sophomore year of high school. It was also the summer that both my brother and my sister left for college. And so not only did my parents move me to the opposite coast of the country in the middle of high school, but my brother and sister left at the same time. So
What was your connection to your brother or sister? Like, how close were you? Were you not so much?
we're pretty close. We grew up pretty close, the three of us.
So it was a little tough losing them at
Oh,
that time.
for sure. Yeah, real tough. Yeah.
I'm imagining you guys. How far apart are you guys?
So my brother and my sister are only 14 months apart,
Okay.
but my sister and I actually are 3 years apart.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Boom and then boom. So you guys were a pretty close nucleus.
Yeah. Pretty
And then you were all of a sudden
all
baby
alone.
by
all
herself.
alone. Yeah. Yeah.
So then Nova Scotia, graduated high school.
Yep.
You said you didn't go to college.
I did
right?
not. Go ahead.
Somehow you landed in Colorado Springs.
Yeah. Here's the quick version. I wanted to get out of Halifax.
You wanted to get the hell
I
out
wanted
of
to get the
Halifax?
hell out of
Is it that
Halifax.
bad?
Listen, I got kicked out of Christian school halfway through my junior year. It wasn't anything big or scandalous. I went to a dance at a public high school.
Really? So it was traditional.
Very, very strict, very
Okay.
religious. So I wanted to get out of Halifax, and Halifax never felt like home. It felt like a dark place to me. And so I was only 17 when I graduated from high school. My big plan was that I was going to move to Texas because that's where my sister was. And I was going to save money for a year. And then I was going to move to LA, and I was going to pursue my
The
life as an
acting.
actor. Yeah. But got to Texas, met a boy.
That happens.
who
That
was-
seems to happen
yeah,
after high school.
Yeah, it happens. I met a boy who, I should say I met a man. He was a senior in college.
Okay.
He was in the Air Force. And
Gentleman and a scholar. No, officer and a gentleman.
officer and a gentleman.
That's what I told.
Let's just call him an officer and leave out the gentleman
all right,
part.
you got it.
Yeah, I, met a guy and ended up marrying him and following him around and had a whole bunch of babies, had 3 babies to be exact. And he was military, so we ended back out here in Colorado, but I've been divorced for 11 years.
Oh, that was a while ago then.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Your kids are older now?
18,
18.
16, and 14.
Okay.
Well, she turns 18 in a few weeks.
They're almost that college age.
Yeah, we were just out at visiting her college on Saturday.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So you met a boy and your acting stopped.
Yeah.
So
Pretty much.
When did your acting start and what did that look like?
Yeah. So, I mean, we're just going to go for it, Juice. I started at like 12. I knew I always wanted to be in front of camera. I just knew it. Like I wanted to sing, wanted to act. It just felt like that was what was in me. And so Vancouver is known as the Hollywood of the North.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
You would
Okay.
not believe how many movies and TV shows have been shot in Vancouver. I can pick them out instantly. I'm always like, that's Vancouver. That's Vancouver.
We'll say Super Troopers.
Probably. I'm pretty sure.
That's a
think so.
Canadian joke show.
I know Super Troopers.
Oh, have you seen it?
I do. I think it may have been shot actually in Maine, though.
Not in America,
Yeah.
not in Canada?
Yeah, I think that one may have actually been shot in Maine.
So are there any particular movies that are your
Twilight.
favorites Twilight was shot?
Not one of my favorites, but Twilight franchise was all
Okay.
shot there. There's
I had no clue.
there's so many. Pretty much any time a movie or TV show says that it takes place in Washington or Seattle,
Really?
they're lying to you.
It's Vancouver.
Yeah.
No way. Oh, so like that coastline, I can picture movies like the Pacific Northwest, like you say, over the ocean.
Yeah.
and it's supposed to be Seattle or whatever because
Yeah.
there's islands off the coast.
Yeah.
But that's actually in Vancouver.
Pretty much always, yeah. So I begged my parents to let me get an agent. And so
You came to them and just told them one day, you know what? I want to be an actress.
Oh, I think they knew from
Okay.
like 3 or 4 that that's what I wanted. I think it probably surprised them that I wanted an agent. I don't even remember how I knew that that was a thing, but I begged and pleaded, and they eventually agreed to take me into the city and let me meet with an agency.
Really?
And they signed me. They were like, obviously she's going to need headshots and training and all that. And so I did that. But I actually, the very first audition I ever went on, I booked it, and it was a series.
Really?
Yeah.
You made your first audition.
Yeah.
Isn't that not normal?
No, it's not normal. No, it's not normal. No, actors will go on hundreds of auditions
That's what
before booking something.
I've seen Chris Pratt interview about how like
Listen, it really set me up for a lot of disappointment when you think it's going to be that easy.
Oh, okay.
But so like, I mean, I loved it. I loved being on set. My parents I was the youngest of 3 kids, and we were poor. So there was not a lot of appetite for them to be like stage parents and constantly driving me into the city and all that. And so, but they, they supported it as best they could for a little while. But I mean, I don't know how deep you want to go, Juice, but
I'm curious because I'm guessing you're a single parent income. Did your mom stay home with you guys?
No. My parents were married. Yeah.
No, but I mean, they're married, but did they both work?
Oh, no. Yeah, correct. Single parent income.
So dad worked full time.
Dad was a
mom
cop.
Stayed home.
Mom stayed home.
And that was the extent of the income that your parents could pour into your future actress.
Oh, sure. I mean, honestly, the real challenge, like why I stopped, the real challenge, had more to do with my body changing and developing than anything. Like,
because you were 12 years old.
I was like 12 or 13 at the time, and my body changed into a woman's body.
Did you do like the duct tape, like wrap it around and try and keep your
no,
chest out?
No, I wasn't doing any of that, but it was like it was too much to hide, honestly. Like the series that I got booked on, in between.
Can we watch it?
You'd have to try and find the VHS tapes. LWTV, Lightwave Kids Club.
Okay.
There are. So one of my actors that I was in it has threatened to like take the DVDs and put them on YouTube, but I don't think anyone really has. No, like in between the time when they booked me and when we started filming, like my body had started to shift, and the costume department and the director, when I showed up on set, were like literally having conversations in front of me of like, what are we going to do? Well, we can put her in some vests and like and then once I started going on auditions, it was becoming a thing because I had a tiny little angelic face and a petite little body that was developed like a woman's body. So I became I wasn't
like a mini woman.
Yeah. Yeah. So I wasn't castable.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I still, like, I mean, I was little and I had this like cute little face, but my body didn't
match
it didn't look like a little girl's body anymore. And so they couldn't really cast me. And so I didn't really do any more professional work for, through my high school years. And then I got married and had all these babies. And so I didn't really even get back into acting until I started going through my divorce.
So you were going through these changes and hearing these conversations about you right in front of you. What did that do to your thoughts or your outlook on who you were and what you were doing?
Yeah. I mean, this is a whole thing. I mean, we're talking about the opening of my memoir right now. I mean, the book I'm writing about myself starts around puberty.
Okay.
Because I started being sexualized at a very young age before I even really understood all of the things that were happening in my body. Like, for any young woman who develops faster than their peers or earlier or whatever, like, our society, our culture has not figured out that like a young woman's autonomy also involves people talking about their body. You know what I'm
Okay.
saying? Like we teach young girls, like, you know, no one gets to touch you or anything like that. But like, what about people talking about your body without your permission? Like that was, I mean, I'm, I'm not exaggerating. I was in the kind of position where the way that my body was developing and the way I looked, where I was being catcalled on a regular basis. I had
How old?
like 12 and 13.
Okay. Wow.
I had a stalker at 13, a grown ass man who, I mean, the cops did finding him, but that would follow me. I quit my paper route when I was 13 because of the amount of harassment and
these people knew you from the show?
oh no. These are not people that knew
They're
me.
just
These are just general people
that would see you.
Just general would see me.
Pretty face, woman's body.
Woman's body on a little girl. Oh yeah. I mean, just like at school, I would get pulled aside by teachers saying that parents were complaining that I was walking around school sticking my chest out.
Are you serious?
Serious.
And you had no control over it.
No control over it, which is really like the answer to your question, I think, is that you know, as I'm writing my memoir right now and wrestling through these topics and talk and like really, you know, putting some of it on paper for the first time, I think like I was conditioned from a very young age that because of the way I looked, that it was okay for people to ask questions, make jokes, things like that. Like I had a woman come up to me in a dressing room at a pool when I was a young teenager, and like made a comment about like how horrendous it was that my parents would let me get implants or something like that. And again, I was like just a teenager. I was just like a kid. Like why do strangers think it's okay to talk to me like that? Like why is my body acceptable public discourse because it looks so different? But we do that. Here's the thing. We do that to women's bodies in all manners of shapes, right? Like a young woman that isn't developing, right? People have the same sort of like the freedom. They feel like when someone sticks out, it's okay to talk about it, right? Like if you're not falling into the norm, then people feel more comfortable, willing to like let it be public discourse.
Do you think, or I'm already feeling a little, what's the word? Concern's not the right word, but asking this question came to mind. Is there a body type that's expected to be normal?
I mean,
for women.
Yeah, it changes, right? It changes. And I think that's that's one of the things that's so messed up about like advertising culture and social media and all of this and the messages. I mean, they say that statistically speaking, young girls start getting messages about like their body not being right as early as 8 or 9, right? Like,
wow.
I mean, so you have to think about like right now or just recently, like BBLs were in fashion, right?
BBL,
the fake booty, the Brazilian butt lift.
Oh, okay.
Right? Okay, so that's been in fashion, right? The Kardashians all had it.
Okay.
That was the ideal body type for these last couple of years, right? These women and young girls are getting surgery.
J-Lo,
all of that, trying to like modify that shape of their body. But that shape of body is going out of style right
already?
now. Kim Kardashian had her BBL removed. Yes, you can go.
I'm sorry, I don't keep up on the time.
I know. But so,
whoa.
So this is what I would say to you is that the measuring stick of what women are told our bodies are supposed to look like is constantly moving.
I'm sorry. Being a man and oblivious to all that, I had no freaking clue.
It's constantly moving. Big lips, petite lips, right? Tiny waist, bigger, thick women. Like it changes constantly. I think the most constant, like if you're like, is there an ideal that women are told they're supposed to have? If there is one constant, I would say is what women are constantly told is that we're not enough as we are.
Oh, wow. It has to do with a
No.
look. It's just
How you are, how you naturally exist, and how you naturally show up in your own body isn't enough. It's got to be modified.
that.
Color your
Really?
hair, do your makeup, pluck your eyebrows, work out. Don't work out too much, right? Like it's not that there's an ideal. It's that the way you naturally exist in your own body is a problem.
I'm going to put Greg on the spot a little bit. How often does he tell you you're enough?
Greg tells me constantly that I'm perfect and the most beautiful woman he's ever met. And yeah,
You just put like a little, like a ember on my chest of, do you tell Amy enough that she's enough? Because is that something, because as you were talking, the thought came to mind, I wonder how long you've, through your life, like, if you noticed it around 10, 12, whatever that age is, have you noticed it, that the changing body types or the changing requirements to be a woman through your whole life after that?
I mean, I feel like I don't know that necessarily women sit around and think like, I'm sure there are some that feel the like, oh, okay, well, this is in fashion, so I need to do this now or whatever. I don't think it's necessarily as conscious. I think there's more this general sense of not enough. It's like a general sense. So I would say
Like a virus inside of the computer that's just
yes.
there.
No, that's exactly what it's like. That's exactly what it's like. So, I mean, my journey with being comfortable with my body and being comfortable with my own skin, I feel like has been one of the most powerful and empowering things that I've journeyed through myself. And I mean, for my job now, I spend a lot of time talking about confidence.
Okay.
And because the number one reason why people don't do video, like the kind that we talk about, is not because the technology is too hard. It's not because they don't have enough time or anything like that. The number one thing that keeps people from doing what my company does is their own fear and insecurity of being on camera and feeling like they're not enough. And it's not just a woman thing.
Uh-huh.
This is universal, right? Like,
No, yeah,
right?
I understand what you're saying.
So most humans, right? If you take a picture or record a video of them and make them watch it back, they're going to have like a, ooh, ah, oh, I don't like the way my voice sounds. Oh, is that really how I look? There is a virus in our brain that is constantly telling us that the way that we just naturally exist in our own skin, in our own bodies, the way we get out of bed in the morning, that there's a problem with it, that it's not good enough, that it needs to be different. And so, I feel like the journey that I've gone on is really about like, it's not even about like falling in love with your body or falling in love with your flaws.
Okay.
It's about owning the space that you're in and saying like, the way that my body looks when I am going about my life, taking care of my kids and going to my work and buying groceries and all of that, like, the way that my body exists and the way that your body exists while you're doing all of the things that you have to do is okay. You don't have to modify it. That whole feeling of like, oh no, summer's coming up. I got to get into my summer body, or, oh, I've let myself slide or whatever. It's like, there's nothing wrong with wanting to be healthy and focusing on your health. That's obviously really important. You're an athlete. There's massive psychological benefits and chemical benefits and our physiology. Like, obviously being active and healthy is really, really important, but that's not what we're talking about here right now. We're talking about is that most people, when they sit in their own skin and look in the mirror, they generally feel like that it's not good enough the way it is and that it needs to be modified in one way or another. Here's the crazy thing, Juice, and this is my favorite thing about this kind of work, about like confidence and owning your body and your space and like being like comfortable in your own skin, is that it literally has nothing to do with what your body looks like. Because the people that I know that spend like some of the most time in the gym working on their body,
The ones that look really good?
yes, still feel the same scarcity.
Oh, wow.
They look in the mirror. You know this, right?
Yeah,
you know this,
well,
right?
I know I struggle with that.
Right? They look in the mirror.
Uh-huh.
This isn't good enough. I need to change it. And so
I see what you're saying.
right? It's not good enough yet. I got to change it. And so my, like, where I fall on this, like, over and over and over and over again, is that there is nothing that is required for you to modify your body in any way for you to show up with value. Because the value that you bring to the world and to your family and to your friends and to the people around you has literally nothing to do with your skin suit.
Your intrinsic value is actually the biggest reality in your life.
Yeah. And the skin suit is, right? Like, doesn't matter. If you want to have a flawless body and you want to focus your attention on that, that's fine. But the way that you are existing in your own body today doesn't need to be modified. And that's like the message, right? And that's not to say that, like, body modification is wrong or anything. Like, we're being real honest. I'm like, have no problem with being open and honest and vulnerable with my story. I had a breast reduction surgery. I chose to modify my body because I did not want that to be the most defining thing about me anymore.
Okay.
Because for me, I felt like it was taking away from who I was, and it was taking away from my ability to impact, like, show up just as myself, because it was like having a giant growth on my face that I wanted to have removed because my body was misshapen. Now, does that mean that, like, I needed to? No, that was a choice that I made, and I feel like it was one of the best decisions I've ever made. Like, I'm not against people making choices to change their body, but it's really about why? What's going on? Like, are you doing this because you think that there's a problem with the way your body is, or are you in search of, like, healthier habits and growth or speed or agility, right? Like, it's a mindset shift.
I don't know how to verbalize the thought that just came to mind when you're explaining that, but leading up to that, I'm curious, do you think our society over communicates? Because you said something earlier of, like, you don't have to be in love with your body. Like, I forget how you said it. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Do you think our society over emphasizes or over
self-love, or
yeah, like they push it too far to take advantage of the vulnerabilities that the general people are in?
Sure, absolutely. I feel like capitalism corrupts a lot of really beautiful ideals.
What? I'm curious, what economic system does not corrupt?
That's a great question. That's a great question. That's a whole other podcast, right?
Yeah.
The short answer is that I think we have to start thinking of better ideas than what we have behind us.
Well, and even coming in so much more individual based, not getting caught up into. I came up with a phrase probably about a decade ago, maybe even longer. Big group think dumb. Because it almost seems like the more people you get together, which I think there's studies or whatever, people, like, stop thinking for themselves and they just accept the general consensus.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I've never thought of it in this perspective or in this world of perception.
Yeah, I think the problem with the self-love message, and it's not that it's a wrong message, but I think most people are never going to get there.
Really?
But here's the thing, Juice. Like I am the most comfortable in my body that I've ever been in my entire life. I would venture to say that I am more comfortable in my own skin and my own body than most women that I meet on a regular basis. And I'm also at, like, my heaviest, if we're, quote, like, whatever the scale says, that I've ever been in my entire life, right? Like, but I don't love my body. I don't look at myself and be like, "Ooh, you are so fine." I don't feel that way. But what I've changed what I've shifted is I've shifted the mentality in my mind that when I look at myself, that I am like using language that I'm telling myself that like you're okay. Like you don't have to change any of this. You don't have to feel bad about it. Like the way that you exist in your body right now today, Alicia, with all the stress and the 3 teenagers and the single mom and the full-time job and the boyfriend and all of the things, like there's nothing wrong with the way your body looks while you're going about your life. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just the way it is.
I've struggled with that term self-love for quite a while. And I can't quite put a place on it, except for like when I come back to my own faith where God says, love him and love others. Like if you can focus on those 2 things, then like yourself kind of gets taken care of and all that. And I'm losing my train of thought a little bit, but there's something about that self-love phrase that has never been comfortable 100%. I can understand where people are getting at, but I think it has to do with what you're saying and I'm still, my little plane just took off and now it's like flying around.
It's hovering.
Like,
it's
wait,
doing
is
patterns.
there another airport somewhere that we should be landing at? There's something with the contentedness of what you just said.
Yeah.
That
it's peace and presence, but contentedness is a good one too, right? It's the being okay in the now.
Right, because that doesn't mean peace and what did you say?
Peace and presence.
Peace and presence doesn't mean I have to go out of my way, and I don't have to do. I don't have to do the 10 meditations. I don't have to eat this food. I don't have to do all of this to fit the self-love image. I can just accept. There's the peace of accepting where I'm at.
Yeah. Like, I mean, think about, I mean, part of, I feel like what like haunts people's mental health so often is that scarcity mentality, whether we're talking about how they look or enough money or time or their job or anything like that. And I'm a Buddhist, or I resonate with Buddhism more than a lot of other ideologies, but like the idea of being present is very much where I feel like all of that comes from. And the amount of time that we spend in our minds either regretting the things that we've messed up on, which doesn't serve us. It's one thing to like to have an experience and learn from it and move on. But it's another thing when we play it over and over and over and over and over in our in our head, right? I had an acting coach tell me that once about a bad audition. He was like, you only had one bad audition. However, you've played it over in your head 100 times. So now your brain thinks you've had 101 bad auditions.
When it's only really been
when it's really only had one, right? And we do the same things with like, oh, well, I didn't do enough yesterday and blah, blah, blah. We spend all of this mental energy playing things over and over again in our mind. And it's like we're experiencing the bad thing over and over and over again. Or the other side is we spend like all of this energy being anxious about things that don't exist. We're creating an anxiety story in our brain that we're fixating on about all of these potential things that could happen. But none of that's real, right? Like right here, right now is the only thing that's real. So like my body, the way it is right now in this moment, it's the only body I got. I can choose to put a whole bunch of energy into wishing it was different or hating it, right? Or I could put all sorts of energy into worrying about what other people are going to think, or the next time I go on a date, or blah, 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 blah. But none of that actually exists. Alicia, right now, here in this moment in my own body exists, and I want to be okay with that. I'm not reliving. I'm just
thinking of the things that I'm in right now with where I want to go and whatnot. What makes you anxious?
Well, I have PTSD and feel anxiety on a pretty regular basis.
Really?
Juice. Yeah.
Even after knowing all this stuff and and putting into practice as best you can.
Yeah, because here's the thing about like the things I think, especially as someone like I consider myself to be someone who tries to be really healthy with like PTSD and what that looks like and all of that. And I think if I've learned anything like over these last 11 or 12 years is that being healthy doesn't necessarily mean that I'm not going to get triggered or that there aren't going to be things that will spike a physiological response in my body, because that's like the anxiety.
CBT.
Right? That anxiety or fear or triggers or those sorts of things. It's your brain trying to tell you that you're in danger when you're not. Right. Yeah. And so I don't feel like all of the things I've learned and the healing and the lessons and all of that necessarily, it certainly makes maybe frequency less, but I think what the win is that I have the tools now, the tools to manage, and also the understanding that I am in control and that the physiological responses that happen in my body are not the boss. I'm the boss. Right? So like, I used to have panic attacks in the grocery store.
Walking through, you could feel that spiral start. Yeah, I could feel, early on when I was in counseling and therapy and all of that, post-divorce, when you start like healing and doing the work, it like stirs up a bee's nest, right? It's not all sunshine and roses. And so, like once the bee's nests get stirred up, then it's like, I feel like I was a lot more prone to, like being aware of how things could trigger my anxiety or all of that. But, my brain, as someone who experienced a tremendous amount of trauma, and like throughout my life from a young age through adulthood, my brain is like addicted to the chemicals it gets from fight or flight. Oh, okay.
That's how I like to think about it. That it's actually easier and more comfortable for my brain and my body to be operating in a state of like heightened reactivity and alertness, because it did that for so long that like I have to really focus on being the captain of the ship. Okay. And being actively. I don't think it's silly. Like I'm trauma, PTSD, like this is some of my favorite stuff, but like I actually will tell my brain that I'm safe. That there's nothing bad happening, actively taking back control to keep myself from spiraling into anxiety. And it didn't really answer your question. You asked what gives me anxiety, but the world. Well, the world.
I didn't know you had PTSD, and then the world. Yeah, things have, like you're talking about how triggers something physical. Feeling triggers an emotion or whatever the path is, which is going to create an outcome, which is going to create another feeling or thought, which is going to create another, and it keeps going. Can I ask what was the catalyst to your PTSD?
Sure. I've been sexually assaulted 3 times in my life, and I was in a I don't know how I say it gently for public. I was in a marriage for a decade that only compounded the abuses that I had already experienced in my life. So I did not know that I had PTSD until I was finally in a safe situation and started doing the work, and that's when. When you're in the middle of it, you don't have PTSD effects. You just are traumatized.
In the middle of it.
Yeah.
So, because I've heard PTSD, I I personally associate it with like military, that kind of thing. How would you define post-traumatic stress syndrome?
Yeah. So, I mean, really anyone can experience PTSD. We certainly, like, culturally most often associate it with combat. That's generally where people hear it. I believe that a large proportion of our population is living with PTSD on a regular basis.
And they don't even know it.
And they don't even know it. I mean, essentially, so what PTSD comes not necessarily from the incident itself, but from what you believed was happening or was going to happen to you in the incident. So I can give you a really good example to help explain this. Okay. You could have two people experience the exact same situation. Let's use a very relevant but fucked up and tragic reality of an active shooter in a public place, right? Two people could walk away from that, and one of them can have PTSD and one of them could be totally fine, experiencing the exact same thing. PTSD comes from, generally speaking, you believing that you were going to die in that situation, or that you didn't have control or whatever. Like, it comes from what's happening in your head, not the specific incidents.
Okay.
Okay. So, but what happens, you're going to get a quick, like, trauma brain cliff notes here. Okay. We all understand fight or flight mode, right? So, our amygdala, right? It's sometimes called our lizard brain.
I think of Abdullah Al-Mangada.
Al-Mangada. So our amygdala, also our lizard brain, okay? They call it our lizard brain because that's like our most basic, again, fight or flight.
I've heard of that at some
right?
point. Okay, yeah.
So our lizard brain, our amygdala, what controls fight or flight. Now, evolutionarily, right? If our ancestors, our caveman ancestors, came across a saber-toothed tiger and they kicked into fight or flight, it's because they need to run for their life. So there's a few things that happen when it kicks into fight or flight mode, okay? Number one, your adrenaline spikes, right? Your capacity for oxygen in your lung actually increases, so that you can take in more air. One of the other things that happens when you kick into fight or flight mode is that your higher processing places in your frontal lobe are actually shut down. Because in a life or death situation, when you need to run for your life or fight a saber-toothed tiger, your body cannot have your brain messing it up by you thinking rational thoughts.
Oh, so by thinking rational thoughts?
By thinking rational thoughts, it slows you down. You'll die.
So it turns into reactionary. All the philosophy.
Gone.
Possibles, boom.
Gone. Your ability to process and think through and make decisions is gated, right? Because you are in action. Okay. So that's a healthy thing. This is what's supposed to happen in fight or flight. This is what saves your life. You don't think about what to do. You spring into action, right? Okay. People that have PTSD, what happens is that their amygdala takes over. And now, all the time, regardless,
they're reactionary.
Their body thinks that they are going to die.
They're in fight or flight mode. Or maybe even like fight or flight mode is just kind of hovering there.
Kind of hovering. A lot of people really, I feel like, are just kind of hovering at that stage. And they don't realize that they're living in this heightened sense of their body is always like, where's the danger? Where's the danger? We're going to run. We got to die. What's happening? What's happening?
Yeah.
And so, like, you think about, like, vets, for example, around 4th of July, you see signs or you hear people talking about
dogs,
or like not lighting off fireworks in neighborhoods. Because again, for a combat vet.
Oh, veterans. I was thinking veterinarians.
Yeah,
sorry.
No, it's all right.
That was my bad.
Combat vets.
Yeah.
Right? Around 4th of July.
I had a friend,
Does not matter how sane and rational they can be. They can be sitting in their house knowing it's 4th of July. I'm in my house. I'm safe. And a firework goes off and their brain decides, oh, we're about to die.
Yeah.
And takes over.
Regardless of how conscious they are.
The
gate closes and that's it.
You lose. Okay. So a severe PTSD trigger, like I've, a lot of times I can identify like something like I start to feel my throat closing up is
Okay.
one of the first things I feel. I start to feel like my throat closing up. So like there's a lot of times where I'm able to identify something and like use the tools. But there are other times. I was in summer of 2020, I was at a protest that ended up turning into an active shooter event. Someone in the crowd had fired a gun into the crowd, and I actually handled that situation very, very well. People with PTSD handle life or death situations extremely well.
Oh, because you're actually in the fight or flight.
Yeah, your brain knows.
Yeah.
It's like, cool. We've trained our life for this. We have trained, right? So I actually handled it very well. The very next day, I actually had I was watching a movie that triggered my PTSD. And I mean, we're talking within a matter of seconds, I was throwing up, gasping for air, like felt like I couldn't breathe, like no time for rational thought. Because again, when your brain decides that it has to run for its life, fight a saber-toothed tiger, sometimes you don't get warning. So like part of the like the living healthy is obviously, keeping your mind strong in the first place, but also like being able to recognize that like that's not the boss. I'm the boss. And so when I feel like that's trying to take over, that when my lizard brain is trying to convince me that I am in danger, I'm the one that has to be like, no, I'm not in danger.
Yeah.
I'm staying in control here. You don't get to take control.
So remind me to come back to Facebook if I forget here.
Okay.
I probably will. But it almost sounds like when that's reality, then yeah, everything is operating normal. When the gate closes, lizard brain, reality, oh, that's great. But then when it's not reality, it's like the brain wants to be reality, but when the problem becomes convincing it that it's not.
Yeah. Yeah. The specific trigger that I'm talking about there where, I had been in a traumatic situation the day before, handled it well. The next day, my PTSD got triggered. There was a moment where I had a friend. I was like, I need you to drive me home. I couldn't drive a car. I knew I couldn't drive. And
you weren't at home when
I wasn't at home
when the trigger went off.
When the trigger went off,
Okay.
I was at a friend's house. We were watching a movie. And the crazy thing is like when you are, for me personally, and other people that I've talked to, I can't speak for everyone with PTSD,
Sure.
but for me, like when I'm in a triggered state, I don't feel safe at all. Like not like logically, but like everything feels scary. And so we were like in the car and my friend was driving me back to my house. But even just being in the car felt like so terrifying because my brain had already decided that I was about to die. So you're already in this heightened state. Like one of the things that I gravitate towards when I'm in that state is like I need my hoodie. I want a weighted blanket.
Okay.
I want quiet. Like I need to like be able to like calm my nervous system.
Right.
And then like take back control of the situation.
Was there a point like when you got home or you got to your door or you got to your couch or bed or wherever that finally that was the relieving point? Like you talked about you need your hoodie, you need to weight, but was there something?
There's not an instant relief. I do not have, I don't have good news for anyone that's like, ooh, yeah, I have panic attacks too. It's not an instant.
This is the cure.
Yeah, there's no instant cure. It's just a matter of like, I don't know, taking the steps, working the program.
Yeah. And knowing that it's going to be a process and taking those steps.
Yeah.
I think that's where Amy and I have argued before on positivity because I believe positivity. I'm probably the most pessimistic, positive optimist you'll ever meet.
Okay.
But I saw a friend of a friend. I don't think he's dead, but it looked like he was spiraling down to homelessness and then what would eventually lead to death if he would not stop living in the positive. Because it was like, just be positive, man, just be positive. But then the alcohol got worse. And then accepting the suck and the reality was like completely, there was no accepting the reality. And it sounds like what you're saying, yeah, positivity is important, right? Like, and you're talking about mindset and that, but there is no instant positive cure to when you get your trigger.
There's no instant positive cure for anything. Yeah. To anything, right? Like it's a process. It's always
and you have to accept that process.
You do have to accept the process. I think shame in anything, whether we're talking about relationships or healthy relationship with your body or handling anxiety, depression, PTSD, all of that, I think shame is a killer, right? Like the moment you start like indulging in the shame aspect of like, I'm so bad, or I'm, whatever, like this is my fault, or all of that, I feel like that's such a killer. It's such a killer. Like, obviously like there's more than just positive thoughts and vibes. And also
it's like, not just pixie dust.
It's not just pixie dust. A friend and I were just,
not the answer.
A friend and I were just joking about this the other day. Like, I don't know, like doing the healing work of healing from like the crap of your past or your childhood or all of that. Like, I am sorry, but it is not sunshine and roses. Like, like the being free, living free of the weight is good.
It feels good.
It feels really good, but it's not an easy, fun process. Like diving into like the shadowy parts of yourself and uncovering, the hard stuff it's not fun, but it's good. It takes work. Yeah, of course it does.
It's a lot of effort. It's probably draining.
Yeah. Well, and it's ongoing work, right? Yeah. Like I don't think that there's like a benchmark for healed for anyone, right? Like everyone has stuff, right? We all have, whether it's from our family of origin or from middle school or whatever, like we all have things that have happened to us that we've got to unravel like one way or another, but it's worth it.
Hearing you share, sometimes I'm like contracting and other times I can feel just like let it go. Like while we're talking through this, I remembered Facebook, and I wonder if what you're explaining is a big why so generally so much of our society is stuck in that retorting.
I think so. I mean, I truly believe that is a big part of it, is that we're especially what we've been through in the last couple of years. We can't discredit the fact that we had a mass death event in the U.S.
Yeah.
I mean, like that.
Regardless of where you stand.
Regardless of where you stand on it. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Millions. Like millions.
That should not have.
Yeah. And so like, even that, like everyone, like we can feel that everyone's more reactive, but I do think that a lot of it has to do with the fact that we're all living in really elevated cortisol states.
That was like the sledgehammer. Like that was the point right there. That was it.
That was it?
Yeah. Well, not it, but like that was a very humbling. That was a lot of gravity in one statement.
Yeah, I don't know. We don't have to go down this road too far, but I don't know parents or students that aren't feeling like almost a constant PTSD reaction to school shootings, right? Like parents, especially as mothers, not saying that dads care less, but I think dads are able to compartmentalize it a little bit more.
Just the emotional connection is not quite the same.
Yeah. But like, I think that in itself, like our kids are experiencing an elevated cortisol state just by the fact that we're notified every couple days that there's been another like mass shooting event, you know, like.
I just read something that one here in D20 was actually spoiled recently.
Yeah, I heard about that.
I was shocked. I could not believe that just up the road.
Yeah, just right up the
There could have
road.
been somewhere.
Yep. Takes a toll.
Looking forward, what have you done with your kids to try and not mitigate, but like guide them through? Because it seems like our society latches onto this, what we're talking about.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always trying to make my kids aware of their own power over their own bodies, mind, right? Experience, all of that. I think that that's such a big, I think that agency is such a big deal.
What do you mean agency?
Agency in the sense of like, I have ownership over who I am.
I like that word.
I have ownership over what I'm feeling, right? Like,
yeah,
like trying to like help them understand that they are not, they're not just like a pellet tossed around by all of these things, that like, you know, how you feel and what you think and how you decide to do that. Like, you have all the power in the world. I've been trying to teach my kids from a really young age. Like, there's so many things outside of us that we don't have control over. There's, in fact, very few things.
Yeah.
Very, very few things do we actually have any control over. But the one thing that you get to control is how you react to it all. Right? So like, so taking that agency over it, right? It's the difference between someone who has experienced a lot of like traumatizing things and might have PTSD, that has decided that because of all of the things that has happened to them, that they're never going to be able to have XYZ or be XYZ or whatever. And versus someone that has experienced a lot of difficult or traumatizing things, that has made a decision and say, this isn't the end of my story. This doesn't define me. I'm more than all of this. And not saying like, I feel like a tremendous amount of humility, because I feel like given my life, given the things I've experienced, I could just as easily have a needle in my arm saying, this is the only way I can cope. I feel like it just as easily, right?
Yeah.
And so I don't feel like people that are able to pick themselves up out of the horrible things and the things out of their control are better than people that can't. I really don't, because I don't know like why. I don't know right? I don't know why me and not them. So, but I think for my kids, like wanting them to like deeply, deeply understand that for your entire life, there are going to be endless things that you don't have control over. Ongoing, constantly. But you are not disempowered, right? Everyone's in the same boat you are. The difference is, are you going to be someone that says, okay, well, here's where I'm at. I'm going to take control of myself. Or are you going to be someone that says, well, here we are.
Man, that perception is something that weasels its way in so easily in the comparison thing.
Yeah.
Where we do that.
Yeah. But that's like, I mean, if we come back to like PTSD or whatever, like even when I'm having like a small trigger that like sets me off enough, it's very, very easy for my first reaction to be that it's not fair. It's not fair.
Yeah.
I didn't choose any of this. I didn't choose my trauma. I didn't choose to go about my day and have this thing trigger me. Right? Like it's very, very easy for your first reaction to be like it's not fair. I didn't choose this. Right? But for me, the difference in my life of being someone who's like laying in the mud, rolling around and being like, it's not fair, it's not fair, all these bad things happen to me, I'm a single mom, I need whatever. The difference between that or what I feel like is my thriving for me is the understanding that it does not matter how you ended up here. It doesn't matter whether it was your fault or not. Here's where you're at. This is where we are today. Do you want to stay on the ground? Or do you want to stand up? Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter who pushed you there.
The steps I hear revolve around acceptance.
Yep.
And I'm losing it. There was something else you said earlier today. Ah, shoot. My brain's gone.
It's all right.
Big question.
Yeah.
If you went to the Olympics, what would be your sport?
Realistically or just dream?
Both. What would be your dream sport? If you could pick anybody, like we're talking about this, if you could pick anybody, any shape, whatever, like that's what you would want. And realistically, which one would you compete in?
Okay. Dream sport?
Yeah.
Like snowboard half pipe?
Ooh, okay, yeah. A little
Yeah.
bit of Kelly Clark.
Yeah, dream sport,
Yeah.
snowboard half pipe. Actual? I don't know. Is there like cross country skiing?
Okay.
Maybe. I don't know.
Winter. Either way, you're a winter sport athlete.
I guess it must be the Canadian in me.
That totally makes sense.
I was just trying to think of what requires the least amount of athletic ability.
You know, the thing about getting older is it's like, oh, I can just rely on my endurance. That's awesome. Well, it's been such a great time having you. I'm so grateful that you came over to Amy's place, soon to be my place. Sorry it's the way it is,
No,
but
it's perfect.
thank you for awesome. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. It was nice to be here.
Next up, coming up, Rustin Carlson, and Puckett is going to be coming. But again, it's been a great time here with Alicia. And if you want to check, the Bomb Bomb stuff, is that open to anybody?
Yeah, absolutely. We offer a 14-day free trial. So you can go to bombbomb.com and sign up for a free trial. You can find me on Instagram, AL_Berruti. I'm easy to find.
And your events are public as well? Or are they
Yeah.
more B2B?
No, they're usually pretty public, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Check out Alicia's memoir. I have no idea when it's coming out, but we found out it's coming out. So keep your eyes peeled. And thanks for watching.